ka whakamarama ngā whetū I te rangi me o tātou tānohi.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Brooke and welcome to Ngā Tahi. This is part 3 of our 3-part Matariki broadcast series. In our last 2 broadcasts, we explored the first 2 pillars of Matariki, remembering those who are no longer with us and looking at how we celebrate Matariki today. In today's broadcast, we focus on the final pillar, planning for the future. We currently face a lot of pressing community issues in Aotearoa, one of which is food insecurity. So how can we as a community work together to combat this issue and ensure that we are all eating at the same table this Matariki? Joining me in the studio today to discuss this is Billie-Jean from Vision West. Kia ora, Billie-Jean.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come into the studio today. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Kia ora, nice to be here. I mua I tēnei whakautu tō kōrero, ko Whānau, ko Billie-Jean toki ingoa no Tikanga Hokianga ki Pangaru. So I'm from a little place on my dad's side, up in the Hokianga far north. On my mum's side, no Tauranga Moana, ko Matapihi, and in the eastern Bay of Plenty, a little place called Te Teko. So that's my 3 sides that I'm from. Anyway, 3 rohe that I'm from. Beautiful places.
Kia ora. I've introduced myself before, but my name's Brooke. I have family from Whangaruru, Te Kōri, and around the Matori Bay area. And yeah, it's very lovely to have you here in the studio today. So I know food insecurity is a complex issue. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that people usually have about food insecurity?
Yeah, it is very complex. Kai, whenever you talk about Kai, it's a very complex issue, and unfortunately we look at it like that as well. I think in a place where I work, Vision West, waka whakakitenga, we have many services that do support whānau, and one being our Kai services. Yeah, I think some of the myths that are out there in society are that, whānau can't do it by themselves. Whānau have limited knowledge or limited mātauranga about standing in their own mana in their whare. So I think that's one of the kind of myths that they kind of need a hand out all the time. They need, they need. Whereas we try and look at the whānau in terms of their own mana. They've got all the skills. We don't. Our kaimahi are very good at assuming, not to assume that they don't know what they're doing in their own whare. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess just branching off on that issue. So what do you think are some of the major contributors to food insecurity in New Zealand? Because I know it's not just a matter of poor budgeting, it's a little bit more than that, right?
Totally. Now I think that's one of the myths that, whānau don't know how to budget. However, when you're faced with limited budget, sometimes you're actually making really tough decisions in that household. Do you pay to fix a window or pay for your power, as opposed to putting kai on your table? And we're still having those sort of kōrero in this day and age, 2026, we're still having whānau still facing that sort of decision making.
Yeah. Do you think maybe like supermarkets contribute to the issue of food insecurity as well? Like, would you encourage people to maybe try purchasing at fruit shops and small businesses where they can?
I think it's a little bit more systemic than that.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit more deeper. We talked about being complex. It's a very complex take issue. I don't think there's a one size fits all. We also at Vision West, we are not, we definitely believe that we need to also be in a community, that community are also helping each other. So we're not the solution either. But we do support, whānau to really push through some of that, through some of those take that they do have. Supermarkets, when you start to look at individualized things like the big conglomerates like supermarkets, you'll go in more into a bigger kaupapa, where it's very systemic and it's very comes from government. So, whānau only see what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is there anything that we as a community can do to help with the issue?
I think we're, whānau are very good at knowing what they need, and whānau are also very good at seeking out where they can get these needs met. Through WINS, many of our whānau that we service, that come through our gates, yes, majority of them are on benefits, but also we've got a huge increase in ones who are fully employed, part-time employed, fully employed. So it is there's like I said, a systemic issue there that cost of living kind of increases, and yet the income doesn't really equate to what whānau get.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up, because I know, a lot of people assume that people that come into Vision West are jobless or homeless. What about individuals and communities? Can we possibly volunteer more, maybe, at organisations like Vision West, or maybe leave food in the pātaka kais?
Yeah, of course. Like every little bit helps, right?
Yeah.
It's not, of course we're not going to go, if you rock up and, you've got some kai to gift to koha, of course we won't turn that down. However, there's, and you talked about, you just asked in your question about volunteering. Yeah, we have a huge volunteer base that whānau really want to give back. Yeah. Like, this is why I say that, whānau are not, they're not just putting their hand out, but they actually want to give back and come back in and volunteer, and they just love giving. That's human nature, really. Yeah. Human nature is wanting to give, and so we have a lot of whānau that want to come back in and volunteer.
Yeah. And do you think this makes a big difference in the community, having individuals try to, do their part in whatever way they can?
Yeah, of course. Like it's not an individual act. We are collective in a community. When you talk community, you can't talk an individual. Yeah. Your community is about the community. So yes, we have community partnering. We have partners in our communities that always wanting to come in. We get gifted and koha lots of kai from our kai providers that on a weekly basis, they're just wanting to give. So we're very fortunate, but we're also fortunate in terms of how we actually work with whānau. We actually sit with them and really help to understand their kōrero, their story. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And so we don't assume that, we don't paint, we don't use the same brush to paint everyone the same. That's where the individualism comes from,
Yeah.
So everyone's got their own kōrero.
Yeah. So what services does Vision West have available for those who are struggling?
So aside from going onto our website and also our Facebook pages and IG and all of those channels, those social media channels, we have an array of services. One of our biggest contracts is our home health care. Home health care focuses on community support workers, carers going into mainly kaumātua kuia homes into the home of kaumata kuia, but also those with disabilities. That's one of our biggest contracts. And there we have those kind of up and down in North Island. Our next biggest contract is community housing. So we have a lot of community housing. Obviously, you need to be on the social housing register through MSD, Ministry of Social Development. We have financial mentors, the old budgeting service.
Yeah.
They kind of flash up everyone. We always get these, these new names every, 3 to 5 years. So the financial mentors, they don't tell you what to do with your money. They actually help you manage or help guide you and give you some really good tips and tricks on how best, with what little or what a lot you may have. So they don't actually tell you what to do with your money, but they help guide you. They give you some ways to navigate, to help you navigate, and especially with debt. New Zealanders, unfortunately in New Zealand, even being 4.2, million people here, we have actually one of the data shows that we have one of the biggest debt, as a country. But we have kai services. So we have a Manaaki Kai. Manaaki Kai is our social supermarket.
Yep.
Where it's really hard to explain, really, because you've actually got to come in and have a look. So there's an invitation to you, Brooke,
Okay.
to come out and have a look at some of our services. But our Manaaki Kai is a social supermarket. So it's a mini supermarket where whānau can book in, and it's on a point system. And the point system is all to do with the size of your whānau. So the size of your whānau, whether it be large, medium or small, you get allocated a certain amount of points. And when you go around the supermarket, on the shelves there are points, 1, 2, and sometimes even 0. Most of our fruit and veggie produce are all 0 points, so that you take as much as you need. And then you can just go around the supermarket like you're walking around Pack and Save.
Yeah.
It's how you shop. So we try and teach, or we try and give whānau some skills about how they shop, smart shopping. So, because it is a point system and it is a very, the cost is only a percentage. So it's a very small cost.
Yes.
We also have Pātaka Kai. That is our, I hate to say it, but it's like a free food store. It's not based on that kaupapa. It is based on aroha mai, aroha atu, the pātaka. So when, like we were talking about giving back, if whānau have like even a lemon tree, bring in some lemons, It's not what you bring in, it's the act that follows or that happens.
Yeah.
So counselling, we have counselling, whānau counselling. We also have a service that is Matanga Oranga. Matanga Oranga is our kaupapa Māori trauma-informed intergenerational service. They're matanga. Matanga are experts. That's what matanga is in Te Ao Māori, and they definitely are experts. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that. Those sound like a bunch of very lovely services. And I like that it also targets habits as well, for those who use it. So does Vision West have any Matariki events planned?
Wow, since I'm on the radio, let's plug it. Yeah, we do, definitely. I've been at Vision West 7 years, and for the last 6 years we've done Matariki. Well, we've done versions of what it looks like for Vision West. And so this year, for the last 5 years we've been going up to a beautiful lookout, maunga, up in the Waitakere Ranges, on the descent of the Waitakere Ranges, and it's Puke Matakio. Puke Matakio is a a beautiful, where you can get a panoramic view of Tāmaki Makaurau, right from the west coast beaches right around to the Sky Tower and Te Rangitoto. Now, we have a dawn karakia up there at 6 o'clock in the morning. This year is happening on Monday, the 6th of July at 6 a.m. Now, that karakia is very intentional, and we have a couple of our kai karakia who lead us in that. There's also a karanga that's had to bring all whānau and kaimahi onto that maunga. It's a beautiful time to come up to that maunga with whatever is going on for yourself. So it can be a very individual thing done collectively. So you come up to that maunga and it's a good time to release whatever you need to, whatever you need to, whatever's going on for you, release that into Matariki and start to really, that's why I say it's intentional. So start to really think about here on in, what's going to happen for me and my whānau. So it's a beautiful time. So that's what we're doing. And then we come back, we have a kai, of course. We don't do a hautapu up there. Hautapu is when you burn, you have a fire. And you have kai and very specific kai that our ancestors, our tupuna, had and was free from all of these, all of the nasties that some of our kai have in today's kai. So yeah, we kind of, and then we go into that week, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, so that's the 7th, 8th and 9th. We've got lots of activities on. It's all over our Facebook page. It's all over our website. So, and we invite you to come along, Brooke, if you would like to come along, you and your kaimahi hoa here. But yeah, and so we end on the 9th, that's a Thursday, with a hangi. And so a bit of entertainment before we go into the Matariki holiday.
Gosh, that sounds like a beautiful week. Can I ask what your favourite part of your job is?
Well, let me tell you this, Brooke. I wake up every morning. I work and live in the same hood. So for a start, that's that's one of my favourites. But I get to wake up and go to a place where it feels like I'm not working. Because I have the privilege of working with some amazing kaimahi who come in every day to give and gift and koha time and energy to whānau who just need a bit of hope. Hope gets thrown around a lot. But when you're really if you're sitting with a whānau and, they're gifting you the privilege of their kōrero, you can't get anything better than that. So you hold that kōrero like taonga, and you really go, right, okay, let's go.
Well, you have a very important role in the community, so thank you for what you do. One last question. What do you think is the biggest barrier to those seeking help, and what message do you have for them?
Yeah. I think before we came into the studio, Brooke, I was talking to you about, I'm very much they've even got a name for it, a strength-based kind of way of looking at things. And that may sound all fluffy and, and squishy and nice, but it's more about, what I want in my community. How would I want my community? How would I want my neighbours? Do I want my neighbours and my community to be flourishing and thriving? You better believe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So whatever that looks like for whānau, first and foremost, they're the rangatira in their whare. And so however they do that, they need to know that there's also others out there. Yes, like Vision West, but also many, many other organisations that can really help support meeting those needs, you know. But understanding that we do understand that they also rangatira in their own whare.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful closing message, and I really appreciate the time you have taken out of your day to share your thoughts and your knowledge. Matariki is a time for reflection and planning, and I really think each and every one of us can contribute in some way towards building community food security over the next year. Matariki celebrations typically involve coming together to share food and meals, and we can carry the spirit forward through simple ongoing actions such as donating surplus food, volunteering our time at local food banks, organisations like Vision West, or even inviting families over for dinner and friends. As the beautiful Māori proverb reminds us, nā tō roro, nā taku roro, ka ora ai te iwi. With your food basket and my food basket, the people will thrive. Manawatia a Matariki kia koutou, ngā mihi nui.